Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. We're back. We took a couple weeks off, but we're back. There's kind of a lot of games out now or coming out very soon. It is definitely fall game season upon us.
October has arrived as we're recording this. And yes, at best, especially the end of October, there's going to be a ton of stuff. But even right now, there is a lot of things. It's beginning to look a lot like fall game season. That's what you just said.
Yes. We can kind of go through some of those. There's some that we should talk about maybe. And then the big thing is kind of Stadia shutting down.
Let's talk about, news, where there's two things that happened that were pretty big since the last time we recorded. We can talk about the bummer thing first. Yes. Google announced that as of January 16th or 18th, 2023. 18th. Stadia is completely shutting down, and they're giving refunds to every single person that bought a game on Stadia. So
all software and hardware sales will be refunded. Yeah, so your controller as well as any games you bought, if you did, they are going to refund you. And if your credit card is no longer, like the one you used, I guess, is no longer active, and like you have a new one, like it expired. This happened to me actually, is why I know about this, because when I bought Stadia, I had a credit card and then it expired, so I got a new one. And now that like the number's different. So in that situation, they will, I guess, contact you at a later date and tell you like how they're going to give you your credit or whatever. But pretty crazy stuff. We were both pretty heavy on Stadia. We liked it a lot. I have my Cyberpunk, which I have not completed, and now I am on a time crunch to complete it. And I guess I don't know what I'm going to do about the DLC. Yeah, so they did say there was IGN, I think, recently had an article about how Ubisoft, Bungie, and some other studios are working on Stadia game save transfers. So it's not guaranteed, and I don't know if that goes for the games that you and I are sort of in the middle of, because you've been playing Cyberpunk on Stadia, and I've been playing Ys 9. And yeah, so we're wondering if we have to like try to finish them by January 18th.
I'm definitely gonna try.
But yeah, so they're talking about how definitely Ubisoft is like put out a tweet or something talking about how they're working on setting up save file transfers through Ubisoft Connect. And Bungie, I mean, I feel like cross-save is a thing, so that's not a big issue for Destiny. But yeah, there are some others as well. They talked about the Hitman developer working on solutions for Stadia players. But
wait, didn't Cyberpunk just reveal, or in that big Edge Runners update, didn't they say they were also going to have cross-save?
Oh yeah, they did, didn't they? So yeah,
so maybe I'm okay. Maybe
you won't have to worry about it. Maybe you can just
buy it on Steam.
Yeah, buy it on Steam and log in, and you might be good to go.
There you go.
Yeah, this is a bummer, because not just because I think it was a very underrated platform that worked really well, and just never got on track, never got a good news cycle about it for some reason. And I mean, for obvious reasons, but also like it didn't necessarily deserve all the hate it got from the start. But
I think if they had delivered on the promise, like what they should have done, Jason Schreier was tweeting about how like there were a lot of things that contributed to this. Specifically, one of them was like Stadia executives paying insane amounts of money to get certain games on the platform instead of using that money more wisely. And I think if they had just like,
well, so they built the platform on Linux. So that meant they had to go to places like Rockstar and be like, hey, we'll have to pay you millions of dollars for this, but could you get Red Dead Redemption 2 running on Linux so that we can have a Stadia version? And if they hadn't made that decision, then, you know, they wouldn't have had to shell out tons and tons of money for a game that was already a couple of years old by that point, that everybody who wanted to play it had already played it.
What they needed to do is deliver on that, like, be on a website, click a link, and automatically be playing a game thing. Like, they just needed a thing, maybe even like a multiplayer thing, that like a bunch of people in schools could just like go to a website, click a button, all of a sudden you're like playing a super high res, like super high fidelity game on your like little Chromebook. And they never really did that. There was never like I remember when they were first unveiling Stadia, it was like, hey, you could be watching a YouTube video and then like click a link and then like jump into the video and be in the game. And that never happened, unfortunately.
Well, they did the part where you just go to a link, like you just type in stadia.google.com and you log in and hit a button and you're in the game. Like that part they got. They just didn't get all the extras, like watching a streamer and then them just being like, oh, you want to play where I'm at? Here's a link. You can literally go into exactly my game state and play that.
I think that game state thing is the way they should have done it. I think they should have gone hard on being like, hey, we'll be the demo capital of the internet. So like when E3 happens or anything like that, give us like a demo of your game. And then during all the coverage, all the news sites can be like, here's this game we checked out. It's pretty cool. Click here for the demo. You click for the demo and you're just in the game. I think that would have been really cool. And then you could have had like a collection of demos and that would have kept you in the environment. And then you would have actually like bought stuff on the platform. I think that would have been an interesting way to use it. Because that is, I think I read like Stadia was used by some game company during the first part of the pandemic to like help iterate on whatever new game they were using. And it worked really well for that because it did work really well.
I read an article where they were talking about a Bungie developer who was like talking about on Twitter about how bummed he was at the news that Stadia was shutting down because they actually used it all the time because it was so much simpler to just like send one iteration of like an update they were working on and have everybody be able to access it and have it be fine, as opposed to like needing to send out multiple updates to multiple different like pieces of hardware for people to test. And if they had a problem, they had to figure out where it was and send that update out again, as opposed to just like one update being sent out to Stadia.
How crazy that they're refunding everything. Like,
it's the right move. So I'm glad that that's happening, but it is like, I think it's more of a bummer. Like as far as the gamers go, it's a bummer that people are losing their platform, but like it's the right move that everybody's getting refunds for everything. It's more of a bummer for the developers who didn't find out about it until everybody else did. So like there were all these articles I saw after the announcement where these developers were basically tweeting that my game was due to come out in like 2 days, and this is when I'm finding out that basically it's not going to happen now, and everything I had been working on is a waste.
Well, it's crazy how much waste there is, because the first reveal for Baldur's Gate 3 from the guys who made like Divinity Original Sin was like in a Stadia show, and they were, I assume, spending a ton of time developing for it to work on Stadia, because it was going to launch on like all platforms, but also Stadia. And then it just never was not happening. So they can just like scrap that folder, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's less of a bummer for them because they were developing for multiple platforms anyway. True. So it's not like they're going to have to turn around and figure out how to get their game running on other platforms so that it can still be out there. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about it before we started recording. We also hope that Google issues like an update for the controllers so that the Bluetooth can be used, so that you can still use the Stadia controllers, which people do like, and I like the controller as well. Yeah, I
love my Stadia controller.
So if they issue an update, because right now there's Bluetooth in it for like connecting it and like setting up your initial setup. But beyond that, it doesn't use the Bluetooth because it's a cloud controller, so it connects directly to the Stadia servers. Yeah. And so if they can do an update so that the Bluetooth works, so that you can still use it with like your computer, then at least it's not like there's going to be like a massive amount of like waste as people are throwing away their worthless Stadia controllers.
Yeah.
But
a crazy situation.
Yeah, and we were also talking about it like I don't know. Maybe I always root for like the smaller things to succeed, because I did want like more competition in the space is obviously a good thing. And I think a little bit of the struggle was the fact that they were never able to get other studios to like, they were never able to buy any studios, and like obviously they shut down their one in-house studio that they had. And Jason Schreier was tweeting that they did try to buy other studios and they just never could get it done. And I wonder how much that is because Microsoft and Sony were buying everything up and maybe outbid Google, or those places were just like, I don't want to be bought by Google, I'm going to be bought by Microsoft. So yeah, that definitely made it more of a challenge for them. But yeah, I don't know. I liked Stadia a lot, and it was the place that I would always go back to if I wanted to play Elder Scrolls Online, because I didn't want to have that massive file downloaded
Destiny
on my computer.
As well. They did a thing just like very recently, where they were like, hey, all of this DLC is free for like a week. You can just like jump back in and do this if you want, just like in preparation for the Witch Queen that's coming out. And I did. I jumped back in and I played for, a couple hours, and it was fun. And I didn't have to download anything. I started playing immediately, and it's a bummer.
Yeah, and there were like some cases where you had games like Destiny 2 or Cyberpunk where they were like high profile games that like people were turning to as an alternative. They were turning to Stadia because like when Cyberpunk launched, it was such a mess on every other platform.
Yeah.
That Stadia was basically the only stable way to play the game. And same with Destiny 2, there was a period of time where you had massive amounts of cheating in Destiny 2 on PC. And so you had a lot of like Destiny PC players migrate to Stadia because they could still use mouse and keyboard, but they didn't have to deal with the cheating that was on PC. And that, I feel like, converted a good number of like Destiny players to the Stadia version, because there were like some Stadia specific Destiny streamers that kind of popped out of the woodwork after that. And I guess they can just go back to PC, but I don't know. There were some like Stadia specific podcasts and streamers that I followed off and on over the years, and I guess they're all gonna have to close up shop or switch to other platforms, but it is definitely a bummer.
It is, especially now that the Steam Deck is out and they're like making all these Linux ready Steam Deck games. I feel like that would have been such an easy thing to like, hey, this is running on Linux now. We can just like port it over to Stadia.
Yeah, I saw articles about how there were all these like streaming handhelds that were like are gonna come out soon, that companies are working on. They're building these handhelds kind of to compete with the Switch and the Steam Deck that are built specifically for streaming games. And I guess, I mean, they've still got NVIDIA GeForce Now, and they've got maybe Amazon Luna and Microsoft like xCloud or whatever they call it now that they can use. But Stadia was maybe one of the biggest, or certainly one of the like better developed ones.
I would say, I mean, if no one knew what Stadia was, less than no one knows what Luna is. I feel like the marketing push on that has been 0%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They did sort of a good job of putting Stadia out there so that people were aware of it. They did a really bad job with messaging around it.
Yeah.
Like, it still to this day bothers me when I see people write about Stadia and they're like, I don't understand why you would subscribe to Stadia Pro and still have to buy your games. It's just like, the model for Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus has existed for years. What are you talking about? Of course you sub to those services and still have to buy your games. Like, you're getting free games every month. And the Stadia version was actually like Stadia Pro was better than Xbox Live in terms of like, if the service had been around or running for 6 months with Xbox Live, if you sub at the 6-month mark, you get only the games, like 2 or 3 games that are available through Xbox Live on that month that you activate. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Stadia, you got more like 5 or 6 games that month, but you also had access to all the previous months' Stadia Pro titles. So they did it a little bit better, I think, than even Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus, but they never got credit for it because even like games media people like Jason Schreier acted like they had no clue what Google was doing with it. It's just like, you cover games for a living. How do you not know what Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus is? Don't act like you haven't seen this before. It baffles me to no end, but
I think if they had like a not a high profile game, but just like one very successful. What I always said about Stadia is it's the perfect platform for a persistent world like MMO. Even if it's something as simple as like a Minecraft that everyone joins and it's all the same world. If they had taken advantage of that, because that platform was built for something like that, where it's persistently there and everyone has the same experience in the same world, or maybe like a couple different servers. But they never really, I mean, they had like Elder Scrolls Online, but it wasn't like specific to Stadia.
Yeah.
They really, I feel like, needed to invest in something that was just like, you can only get it here. And it's very unique because it is persistent, but they just never followed through on that.
I feel like they may have had one in the works that was similar to like maybe Valheim or something like that. I forget the name of it, but it never saw the light of day. Or if it is like maybe still in development, it's going to just have to come out for other platforms.
Yeah.
Like they did have the Stadia Makers program, so they had like some smaller indie titles that came out as exclusives for Stadia, and they were able to get games like I forget which ones were specifically Stadia Makers program games, but they had games like Grime and Wavetale and Young Souls and that Legend of Keepers game, and they even got like another indie game. I guess it wasn't exclusive, but they got like Little Nightmares 2. So they had like some of those games. The other games I mentioned were like sort of console exclusives for Stadia for a while. To my knowledge, Wavetale is still not out on other platforms, but so they got some of those smaller ones, which was good. They needed those titles, but they needed like the big name like exclusives. They had nothing to compete with like a God of War or a Halo. And yeah, it was nice to have Destiny and Elder Scrolls Online on there, but yeah, they definitely needed like a persistent world MMO type of a thing that was the only place you could play it was on Stadia, which is why it still a little bit boggles my mind that Amazon didn't what was the name of theirs? They had 2 of them actually.
New World?
New World was one of them, and there was another one I can't remember the name of, but those launched on Steam and were not available on Luna at launch.
Yeah,
and
I
still don't know if they're available on Luna, but yeah, that seemed like a missed opportunity for them. But they were developing the stuff and that's probably why Luna, maybe even though there's not really been a marketing push and nobody really uses Luna to my knowledge, but that one may stand a better chance of surviving long term than Stadia, just because they do have like in-house teams developing games, which is something Google needed to have.
Yeah, they shut down their in-house game stuff a couple months or maybe a year ago.
Yeah, and I thought that just meant that they were going to buy some exclusives, and they really only did that with smaller games. They didn't do it with any of the big games. So I don't really know what the strategy was there. That was, I think, maybe the first point where everybody was like, okay, for sure the writing's on the wall now. I didn't want to believe it at the time, and I was like, well, they'll just buy their exclusives so they can still have some. And maybe they'll, be able to build up the platform enough that eventually they'll be able to start buying some studios as well, which evidently they tried and just it didn't happen. But the real point where it was like, okay, this definitely is like the writing on the wall for the end of Stadia was that I think it was even earlier this year where they started like moving people around from the Stadia team and talking about how they were diminishing their focus on Stadia, and they were starting to use the tech for other purposes. And you just go, okay, this is when and that's when I stopped being sub to Stadia Pro and stopped buying anything on the Stadia store. And that maybe contributed, like somehow that information got out and people were writing about it, and that was another reason why they couldn't keep it afloat, because I feel like that's when a lot of people maybe abandoned Stadia.
Can you still buy stuff now, or have they shut down that
They've
feature?
shut down the store. If you open the app and you go to the store page, it's like Stadia's shutting down, so you can't buy stuff. But you can still play all of the games that you own, and I think it's unclear to me because I'm not sub to Stadia Pro anymore, but I think there were like some October Stadia Pro games that went live the other day. Wow. And I think if you were sub to Stadia Pro, maybe you still had access to those. But either way, I think your Stadia Pro subscription is the only thing that you're not getting refunded for. So, yeah. But I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know how they would do that. But let's talk about something more uplifting.
Okay.
Grand Theft Auto 5 came out 12 years ago? More than that. How long did it come out ago? 10 years ago?
It came out on 360 and PS3, so long time ago.
A long time ago. I loved it. I played it on Xbox 360. I had a great time. This is before they added all those like extra... I mean, it's come out so many times. Like there's first person mode now, and there's been so many like HD graphical enhancements and whatnot. I would imagine it feels like a very different game from the one I played, a decade ago. But GTA 6 is on the horizon, and since the last time, this is perhaps a little bit of old news since the last time we recorded, but I wanted to talk about it. GTA 6 has leaked, or I guess some early build of it has leaked. There were like 81 videos or something that got posted, and a lot of them have gotten taken down, but I mean, they were up for a while because it got posted, I think, on a Sunday. And did you watch any of these? How deep did you go into this?
I mean, I saw the initial leak where it was like somebody at like what appeared to be some sort of diner that was like holding the place up. And there was like, it is sort of the Bonnie and Clyde like main characters that were there. And it looked a little rough, but I mean, obviously it's like super early footage. I don't know if I've seen the most recent footage yet.
It confirms a couple of things. You're right. It is like a Bonnie and Clyde thing. So there's a girl and a guy. It is going to be in Vice City, like a modern day version of Vice City, which people are excited about. It's like Miami, basically. It was a very early build, though. So a lot of people were like, hey, this looks just like GTA 5, whatever. This isn't going to be cool. But I've seen a lot of stuff where people were saying initially also like, well, big game companies use previous engines to like iterate on game ideas. So this is from like 2017, I think, or it's from a good number of years ago, the build that got leaked. So like they could have still been using the GTA 5 engine to just like build stuff out, white box stuff, and see what it's going to look like before porting it over to whatever the like new next gen version is. And then like also a lot of other game companies were like, hey, you can't like look at this stuff and think it's like this is the final product. Yeah. A bunch of people put out like the guys that made Control put out very early versions of what Control looked like, and it looks very different. So it's illuminating, but you should also take it with an extreme grain of salt because it is from a long time ago, and games change
Yeah.
so quickly. I mean, Anthem taught us, like that big expose on Anthem taught us that like that game was wildly different.
The majority of the game is developed in the last year.
Exactly. Yeah. So who knows what it will be like, but we do know some key story things. It's going to take place in Vice City, and it is going to be a girl and a guy. I watched quite a bit of the gameplay. It seems interesting. They took some things from Red Dead Redemption that I liked. You know how like in Red Dead Redemption you could approach anyone and you would have like 4 different options. You could like say howdy to them, or like
punch
be mean to them,
face accidentally,
or punch them in the face, or like hold them up. Yeah. So there are that they have ported over those like context sensitive menus when you're approaching people, which is a good idea. But I don't know, where did you land on Red Dead Redemption? Did you enjoy the way that Rockstar has been developing their games?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I think I did name that one my game of the year that year. But I wanted... Their controls are still a little bit obtuse. Yes. Such that I would love for them to maybe modernize the controls more. I don't know if that's something they're working on, but...
I really liked Red Dead Redemption 2, and I completed it, and I think it was one of my game of the years as well, but I don't know. Did you ever... I think we did talk about this. We watched that one YouTuber guy made that like hour-long video about Red Dead Redemption 2 and how Rockstar's level design is somewhat not dated. Good these days. Yeah. Yes, very dated. Where like it's not as much of a sandbox. You want GTA to be a sandbox where he told a story. I forget what his name is. I think it's Jake. But he told a story about how in GTA 3, he did a mission and he like couldn't get the mission to happen. And then he realized like, oh, I'll prepare for the mission. I'll prep all these things in the sandbox so that I have it ready. And then it'll be super fun and cool. And similarly, he tried to do something like that in Red Dead Redemption, where he tried to like take a shortcut basically instead of doing what the game wanted him to do. And it just said failed for no reason. It just says like, hey, the person you're trying to protect died off screen. And I think that GTA is great when it is like a true sandbox where you are rewarded for your creativity. And there is that emergent gameplay of like, I'll do this mission in a boat and see what happens or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll do this mission like at nighttime and see how that affects it. Whereas like, it's not going to just like hold your hand and be like, no, first you go here, then you drive here, then you have to have this conversation, then you can climb into the window, things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I obviously everyone in the world was going to play this game, but did you come away with any interesting things that you learned from this or anything you thought about it?
No, I mean, I didn't like, I'm taking it all sort of with a grain of salt, like you said, and I'm not reading too much into it. One, because I don't really want to know that much about what GTA is going to be until I start playing it myself. But also, like we've talked about, the game can change so much. Like it's nowhere near release. So any footage we see now is not going to be anywhere close to like what we can expect the full game to look like and play like. So, I mean, I do have like hopes for the next game that it is a little bit more of a next step in terms of like open world design. 'Cause we watched that video and it was very clear that like the YouTuber that made that video made it very clear that their design is very like, you must go from point A to point B and then to point C, and you have to interact with things in a certain order and do them exactly the way the game expects you to, or it's not going to work. So there's not that sort of free sense like there is even in something like Breath of the Wild, where you have like, you're sort of free to encounter things as you encounter them, and also the solutions to what you're trying to solve in that game are kind of up to you, where like somebody might like use some sort of electricity thing to hit a switch somewhere. You've figured out that you could like, you have different objects in the world that like carry a current, so you've laid them out across this path and somehow gotten it to channel the electricity from point A to point B in a way that the game didn't expect, but it totally worked. So I would like for them to be able to do something like that.
I think that's the example he gave, is like the Red Dead Redemption 2 swiveled between two different extremes. Like, for like when you're in the open world, it's like Breath of the Wild, but then you get into these missions and it wants to be an Uncharted game where there's only one way to do something, and if you miss the timing, that's it. The game says, no, you've done it wrong. You have to start from the beginning. And so it doesn't know what it wants to be. And it's still a very good game, and I still recommend everyone play it. But I would love for GTA to like swing more back on the way of Breath of the Wild, where you do have these like emergent systems. How great would that be? Where like you just know, like you're walking around and you're like, oh, this is a bank. I can go and rob this bank emergently, like, and it's not going to affect the story or anything, but, or maybe it will. Maybe during a mission, I know that I need to get away, and so I can like rob a bank during a mission, and it's not going to fail the mission out. It's just going to adapt the mission into that. That's, I think, the promise of like truly next gen games, is like with AI stuff where it's like learning. My brother once said that he thought like the perfect, or like the truly like next gen perfect game would be a game that realizes what you're trying to do and adapts to that to make what you're trying to do interesting. So like that's like also the promise of like playing Dungeons and Dragons, where you're playing with someone who is not a computer. So like the dungeon master sees like the gambit you're trying to do, and rewrites the story a little bit so that it just works. Like you want a game that has a director similar to that one. Was it what was that game? Left 4 Dead. They made a big deal out of like the director, where it would see what you were doing and like adapt the like run to meet what you were trying to achieve. It would throw more zombies at you at certain places based on what was going on. And I think that who knows what GTA 6 will be, but I would love for it to be more of a Breath of the Wild than an Uncharted. But I guess we won't know until it comes out.
Yeah, if they can somehow find a way to like make it feel less scripted down like, narrow pathways, and make it so that like if I know that there's like a shop owner over there who I've done like a mission for in the past, maybe I can like, if I'm on the run, I can go over there and he'll like help me out in some way.
That would be insane. That would be cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so stuff like that, it would be cool. I mean, I think it would involve a lot more writing, and a lot more like sort of trying to, and maybe this is where like AI, game development comes in, but like just like, I don't know, finding a way to make it so that it's possible for some of that stuff to happen, stuff that even the devs didn't foresee. But
Overwatch 2,
that is coming out as we're recording in a couple of days. So like this next week.
Free.
The multiplayer is free to play. And it is just the multiplayer part of Overwatch 2 that's coming out this week. Yeah. They did delay the sort of PvE cooperative stuff till next year. So that's unfortunate. They did add some new characters as well. I think there are like 2 or 3 new characters. The one that I've seen most, because I have not jumped in to Overwatch in a while. I do plan on downloading Overwatch 2 and maybe giving it a shot and seeing if I can get back into the game. But there's a new character called Kiriko, who is a healer that has like, it seems sort of like a combination of Mercy and Moira, where you have like sort of 2, I guess they're not attacks. One is like a healing thing for your teammates. The other is an attack to deal damage. which is similar to Moira, but then you also have sort of that mercy ability where you can sort of kind of teleport to an ally to heal them. Mm-hmm. So it seems like kind of a combination of those two characters. I do like playing sort of the support role, so this is definitely a character I would try out. I know there are a couple other characters that I'm not as familiar with, but do you think this is going to get you to jump back into Overwatch?
No. No, I don't know. I mean, right when it came out, like during like the pre-release beta that I got into, I was very into Overwatch, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it is a thing where it is a little bit daunting because they've released so many characters since I stopped playing. I think Moira actually was the last character they added since I played. And I know there's been like 15 or something after that. They added like a big hamster with like a robot ball or something.
Yeah.
There's a guy with a fist as well. But I don't know, man. I like multiplayer stuff in theory, but it's been a while since I've gotten really into a PvP style game. I'm trying to think of the last time I was excited to... I mean, I'll go back to PUBG every once in a while, but it's been probably a year since I've played PUBG.
Halo.
Yeah, Halo, actually. Yeah, I played Halo for a little bit. So maybe that was the last one, but I don't know. I think I'm very into asymmetrical, interesting multiplayer things. Something that is not in our show notes, but did you ever play that very old Splinter Cell game where it was spies versus mechs as mercs, I should say, as a game type where two players were like first-person shooter style mercenaries that had different guns and stuff? And then two players were Splinter Cell style third-person spies in like the black suits with the like little goggles. And the spies were trying to get somewhere and like upload some data, and the mercs were trying to stop them from doing that. That probably came out when we were in like high school or like very early college.
No, I never played it.
It was a free demo that came out, and my friends and I played it a ton because it was just like one level, but it was multiplayer enabled. And a game came out, or a game is coming out, I should say, that I think is just called Spies versus Mercs. That is basically that game type. And that is very interesting to me because I like weird multiplayer stuff where each team is trying to do a different thing. Like in Conker's Bad Fur Day, where it was like a tower defense thing. Like all the multiplayer modes in Conker's Bad Fur Day were very interesting and like asymmetrical, but Overwatch is just
well, I was gonna say that's kind of why I do like Overwatch as opposed to like ever wanting to go back to Call of Duty at this point.
Yeah, because they give you objectives.
Yeah, Overwatch has objectives, and they also have like classes, and so you're fulfilling like a very specific role on like a team, as opposed to everybody just pick the assault rifle and just run around and do your own thing, and at the end of it we'll see who got the most kills or who died the least amount of times. Like, I'm not as interested in that anymore, and I'm also not super interested in battle royales for some reason. Like, they've never really grasped my attention for very long. I don't really love like wandering around aimlessly looking for upgrades for like 20 minutes and then dying instantly and not really getting anything to show for it and having to start over. So like this is exactly the kind of multiplayer experience I am looking for, where it's like, even if you're not like a great shooter, you can be like, okay, I'm going to play a support character and I'm going to heal my teammates, and I can still get into it and feel like I'm helping the team, and we're like, I like contributed in some positive way to a victory, even if I didn't rack up like a crazy kill count. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I've always appreciated Overwatch. And to an extent, it's worth, I don't know if I want to admit it because I feel a little bit lame saying that I have played Splatoon 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's kind of got a similar vibe, not in that there's like, it's a little like in Control in Destiny 2 multiplayer where you're like trying to control specific points, except in Splatoon 3 the entire map is the point you're trying to control, and so you're just like throwing paint everywhere, and you know, at the end of the match, whoever has the most paint everywhere is the one that wins. And so you, similar to Overwatch, don't have to be like this great, shooter player who's racking up this crazy kill count. As long as you're like contributing to the team and like laying down ink in different places, like you can still feel like you've contributed to a victory. So I like when games are like that, because maybe it's just because I'm getting older and I'm not as good at shooters as I used to be, but but I like to play them and feel like I'm part of a team and that, we've been able to accomplish something. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's why I always appreciate that style of game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since I played Overwatch, so maybe the new characters will make me interested. And I'm more interested in the PvP cooperative stuff that's going to come out next year. But
yeah,
I mean, this is like free to play, so there's not really any reason not to try it out. But
I heard really good things about that Gundam game that is basically Overwatch. Apparently that's like very good and scratches an itch for Overwatch people that are kind of bored of Overwatch.
Yeah, I think I've seen some people play that and they said it's good, but it kind of doesn't, like, visually speaking, does not look very impressive to me.
Yeah, I think you need to have nostalgia for the old anime for it to like click with you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I do think, and maybe it's worth talking about Splatoon at some point, but that game, there's a lot to it. Like, there's a single player thing, there's like a cooperative mode, there's multiplayer, and there's like even a card-based mode. So it's
card-based.
Well, it's more like it achieves the multiplayer thing of try to control this area by laying down paint in every place, but like you sort of have these cards that have different like paint shapes on them, and so it's like it almost looks like Tetris when you look at it, but you have this like grid, and so you're just like, when it's your turn, you pick a card that has like a paint shape on it, and you put it down somewhere, and you've just put paint down on your side, and then the other person goes, and you have to like keep trying to fill out the map with ink until you I guess run out of cards, or it's the end of the game or whatever. So it's interesting. I haven't played much of that, but I don't know. I kind of have enjoyed that. If it's a game that I can not take super seriously and not like, it seems like a little bit more of a casual like shooter experience, I can get into that, because then I don't have to deal with like, crazy 12-year-olds who are like running circles around me. But
I have one more piece of news to talk about before we talk about games that have come out.
Okay.
We didn't talk about this. I sent you a link, but during that week where it was like fake E3 Part 2, 3D Realms had a like press conference that was like a direct for them, basically, where they showed a ton of stuff that I found super interesting. They showed more of that Gloomwood game, I think it's called, the one that's like thieveswithguns.com. But the one that I found most interesting, the one I wanted to talk about, is Phantom Fury. I really liked that old game, Ion Fury. It used to be called Ion Maiden until they got sued by Iron Maiden. But I love old style, they call them boomer shooters. And it was great. It was very well made. It gave me a lot of nostalgia for the old days. And I thought they were going to kind of leave it at that. There's a DLC coming up for that called like Aftershock, which may already be out, that I should check out. But in addition to that, they released a trailer for Phantom Fury, which is a sequel that upgrades the engine. It's no longer in the build engine. Now they're changing it over to look like it's like a Half-Life 1 style game, or like Halo Combat Evolved. So it's now like somewhat more 3D as opposed to like build engine, just like 2D sprites. And it looks good. It looks, if you're feeling like you want to play like an old school like Halo 1 style or like Half-Life 1 style game, it looks like it's really going to scratch that itch, or even like a GoldenEye almost. So it's coming out in 2023. Phantom Fury is the name. Maybe we'll do like a longer video on it, because I'm sure they'll put a demo out like they did with Ion Fury. I'd love to know more about this game. It looks very cool. You have a triple barrel shotgun, which I think is very cool. There's gadgets and interactable items and vehicles. There's like a car. You can play skee ball. You can like slide around. It looks like it's very fun, and I'm very excited to play it. And it came out of nowhere, and I did not know it existed until I saw this little weird 3D Realms Deep, I think is maybe what they call it. The like little press conference. But definitely, if you're interested, Google Phantom Fury and watch the trailer, because it will get you. If it's something you're into, it'll get you very excited for a game to come out in 2023.
Yeah, we should do a video on it if they do a demo. So.
They also revealed that game I really like. Oh man, what was it? What was that game we did a video on where you're just like a dude? Hold on. I'm going to look up our YouTube channel.
A game where you're a dude.
Cultic.
Oh yeah, Cultic.
They released like a thing saying Cultic's like it's not out of alpha or beta or whatever yet. There's not like a 1.0 release yet, but they're releasing more content for Cultic, which I'm very excited about. So, yeah, now we can move on. But I should have put that in the show notes, so I completely forgot about that until just now.
Well, so since we last talked, a ton of games came out towards the end of September, and the calendar has flipped over to October, and there are a lot of games coming out. In fact, there was a games podcast that came out this week that I saw but didn't listen to, and I forget which one it was. But they were like, October is a huge month for Nintendo. So specifically, Nintendo is going to have a lot of stuff. I don't know if you want to run down October, but I just have some highlights in here of games that have come out since we last talked. I don't know if you have any intention of playing Return to Monkey Island, but I've heard that is very good.
Everyone loves it. Everyone can't stop talking about how great it is. I think people were super worried it wasn't going to live up to expectations, but by all accounts, it seems to have done that very thing.
Yeah. And then Shovel Knight Dig came out. We've talked a little bit about this off podcast, and we're both interested in playing it because it is sort of a roguelite, but you're going vertically down as you dig deeper and deeper into the level, as opposed to going left to right as you do in most games of this nature. But it seems good. It
seems very fun. It almost it kind of reminds me of that. There was that game I used to play, Deep Well. Did you ever play Deep Well on your phone?
No.
It kind of reminds me of that, but way more like high fidelity. Deep Well was like very monochromatic, and it was basically just two colors, and didn't have. I mean, it was a good game, but it was also very much a mobile game. And this one, it seems like it's got a ton more going on. It has a ton of replayability, and it has that great thing that roguelites have, where you get a bunch of currency, and then you go back up, and the story progresses a little bit because you can like go to a camp and talk to people, and then you can also like build up your guy, so it gets a little bit easier. So I probably will check this out at some point, but it looks very fun, very polished, and I feel like it came out of nowhere because I did not know it was being developed.
I didn't either. It definitely just seemed like it dropped out of nowhere, because I've heard more about that upcoming game that I forget the name of this developer, Yacht Club Games. Aren't they working on like sort of an almost Link to the Past like game that is in like some sort of Kickstarter or early phase of development that they're working on?
Aren't you like a rat in it or something that like digs holes or something?
Yeah, something like that.
That looks good, actually. I watched someone play
more about that game than I had Shovel Knight Dig.
I watched a guy play an early demo of that, and it looks super fun. I'm excited to check that out. I really need to play Shovel Knight. It's like a big blind spot for me.
It is for me as well. It was one of the like early Switch releases that everybody was like crazy about. But I never got around to it. But yeah, I do want to play this game. I sent you like a track from the soundtrack as well, which is very good. And then, so yeah, Deathloop launched on Xbox and Tunic launched on PlayStation and Switch. And then a Hardspace Shipbreaker. I don't know anything about this game, but I have heard good things.
Yeah, it's like it's like what you were doing at the very beginning of the Star Wars game that came out with Cal Kestis that I can't remember the name of, Fallen Order, where you're just like breaking down ships, and I think it's one of those like relaxing games, because I don't know that there's so much of a story. Maybe there is. I guess I don't really know a lot about it either, but it's mostly just like, I think, disassembling giant hulking masses in space for money. But maybe there is. It would be cool if there was like a little story where like maybe a ship is not as it seems or something, but I have not seen a frame of this, so I have no idea.
Well, the two games on this list that I want to talk about are the Outbound Ghost, which I have started playing. And this is like a little indie game by, I think it's like one guy maybe.
Really?
And he like has a YouTube channel where he's like posted videos about like the production of this game. And it's very charming. It is a Paper Mario like.
Oh, very much so. I'm looking at a trailer right now.
Yeah, and so it's an RPG where you play as a ghost who has sort of lost his memory, and you're in a world called Outbound, and you're going around, and there's like a little bit of a mystery as to like how all these people died, and so you're trying to solve that. I love this art style. And yeah, the art style is great. It's sort of like you have like the 3D backgrounds, but your characters are 2D and sort of paper-like. And yeah, you're going around and you're getting into sort of turn-based battles, and I really like this game so far. I'm not terribly far into it. I think it's longer than I thought it was going to be. Just given the fact that it's like such a small like indie developer.
Yeah, one guy.
But this guy was talking about it on his YouTube channel, and I think he like is maybe just graduated from college as well. So like, it was a pretty cool thing to have like, an indie developer just sort of openly talking about the development. He shared like some like early concept images and like how the design of his characters have sort of evolved throughout the development process. But pretty cool game. I recommend checking it out. It is on Steam and I believe Switch as well. But yeah, if you like Paper Mario style games or like, Super Mario RPG, I would say check this one out. It definitely has that thing where you select like what attack you want to do, and then there's like a in the same way in Super Mario RPG, it's a little bit more active rather than just like hitting a button and waiting for them to do an attack. You're like also hitting a button to try to time your attack to get like bonus damage, that kind of thing. So it does that as well. I don't know. I am enjoying it so far. I'm curious to see where the story is going. Definitely recommend that. And then the other game that I wanted to bring up was Trombone Champ. I don't know if you get a chance to watch this at all. It's hilarious.
I have watched a couple people play it, and it is very funny to play. So it's just mouse based, right?
Yeah, well, actually, so I literally just last night downloaded it on my Steam Deck, and it does play on Steam Deck. You can use the thumbstick, or it does have gyro controls, which really threw me off. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what to use while I was trying to play it. I only played like a couple of songs, but I was showing my brother this game the other day, and we were laughing so hard just watching some of the YouTube videos of people playing certain songs. And so he was like, you need to pick this up and we need to try this out. So we're going to do that today at some point. But yeah, so it's basically a music rhythm game where kind of like Guitar Hero, but you play a trombone. And on the right hand side of the screen is where your avatar is. And you look like a me from the old Wii days. And he's got like a big old trombone that he's playing. And so the notes that you're supposed to play go horizontally from right to left. And on the left-hand side of the screen, there's just like the bar. And you're either using your mouse or a thumbstick to like move it up and down so that you can press the note at the right time. But unlike Guitar Hero, which I feel like you couldn't just play notes at any time you wanted, it was only when like one of the notes was going across the bar at the bottom. This game will let you just play anytime, anywhere. And so it leads to like hilarious sounding songs because the trombone's already kind of a funny sounding instrument. Oh, yeah. And it's hilarious. The developer of this game had a lot of fun putting this together. Obviously, like the backgrounds are very funny, and like it's not like it's all music that is like public domain. So it's like, you know, nothing copyrighted. So you're like trying to play along to like Beethoven or something, and it's just like this trombone making these horrible sounds. And depending on like how close you are to like hitting the note exactly, it'll say like perfecto if you nail it, or if you're way off, it'll be like nasty. And there's like, as you're playing the song, like stuff is popping up in the background and happening. It's just like there's not a single part of this game that's not hilarious to me. So it's like $15. It's on Steam. It's short. There are only like 20 songs because they're all public domain songs, but it's hilarious. I saw this pop up this last week on Twitter. There were a bunch of people like sharing videos of them like playing horribly, and I was dying laughing at all of them. And so there were, I think on the Steam page, on like maybe the community page, somebody was asking if it was going to be possible to like upload your own songs or like add your own songs so you could play along with them. And the developer was like, this is maybe in the works after like behind a couple other updates they want to do. But the tricky part about that is like trying to avoid like copyrighted material and trying to avoid like a lawsuit basically. Yeah. So unsure if that's coming at some point, but obviously if it's on PC, somebody will mod that in. So I mean,
oh yeah.
But something to keep an eye out for. It might be added to the game later. Hilarious game. Highly recommend. It's a very funny time. Even if you don't buy it and play it yourself, just look it up on YouTube. Like watch some people play Trombone Champ because it's hilarious. And then I don't know if you want to kind of run down some stuff that's coming out in October. Like we already talked about Overwatch 2. Nier Automata is coming to Switch, and No Man's Sky is coming to Switch. That's all. I think that's happening this week, actually, as this podcast is going up. So later this week, those two games will be on Switch, which is very cool. Anything else that's
Mario Rabbids is coming out and also Bayonetta 3.
Yeah, so Plague Tale Requiem, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves is coming to PC, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and why does it say Vampire Survivors is coming to PC?
Yeah, the 1.0 is happening pretty shortly.
Oh, I see. Okay. Persona 5 Royal is coming out on everything, including Switch and PlayStation, so I'm going to have a hard time figuring out where I want to play that. And then, Bayonetta 3 is coming to Switch. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is coming out. And then I want to say there was another one that I'm not thinking of. Maybe that's November. But a lot of stuff. October is very packed as far as game releases go. So, anyway, why don't you tell me about what you've been playing?
I have been playing Dome Keeper. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I've seen people put videos up. I have not watched any of it, though, so I'm not really sure what it is.
I love it. A guy I follow on Twitch posted it. I guess he played it at PAX, and so he bought it now that it's out on Steam. It's like $16, or you can get the deluxe version, which is like $20, where you get the soundtrack. Soundtrack is very good. Basically, it's like a tower defense mixed with a mining game, mixed with like resource management. So it's right up my alley. But basically, you crash land on a planet. It is a roguelite. So you crash land on a planet. You can save one gadget from your previous run. So there's a bunch of different gadgets. You have room, I think, for 3 gadgets. But you crash land on a planet, and you're in a dome, and you're a little dude. And I've been playing on keyboard, but it's, I think, really made for mouse and for controller. But it's kind of crazy because you play it with just one hand on the keyboard. It's kind of like Loop Hero in that way, where I could play Loop Hero entirely with the mouse and not have to click a button. This is the opposite, where you're using WSD to move around, and then like you automatically mine, and you pick up stuff by holding space, and then when you go back up into your dome, you have like a couple different buttons you can press to do different menus and whatnot. But it's very fun. I haven't completed a run yet, but I got very close. It's in the process of being built, like a lot of games these days, where they're going to be adding content to it. But as you play, the thing you're unlocking is more ways to play. So the loop is that you go onto a planet, you go down, you start to drill around, and you're getting resources. There's like 3 different kinds of resources you can get: squares, circles, and triangles. And they do different things. They're like for different upgrade paths, but you have a timer of when enemies are going to come to your dome and try to attack it. So you go down, you mine a little bit, your timer starts to get low, you come back up, you deposit all of the things you've mined, and then you do like a little combat wave. And there's a couple different kinds of domes. I only have one unlocked right now where it's like a laser dome that shoots lasers, but there's another one that has like a sword that swipes around. I think there are other ones as well, but you're unlocking like different dome types, different worlds, different gadgets. There's a gadget that is like a little, not almost like a conveyor belt that goes straight down the middle of the shaft, where you can just throw stuff into that and it'll eventually go up, which is very convenient. There is also a little dude you can get, a little robot. It's almost like a velociraptor with a little drill on his beak. He makes a lot of very cute noises. His name is Drillbert. And you can carry him around and he'll drill for you, and he's very adorable. I really want to get him, but I have not unlocked him yet.
That's awesome.
But it's very fun. It's the game mode I have unlocked right now is Relic Hunt. So basically what I'm trying to do is I crash land, I mine, I protect my dome, but in the process, the main goal I'm trying to do is find the relic. So I'm looking around, and eventually I'll come upon these like, not structures because it's all 2D, but like electronic panels or whatever. I'm trying to find the big one that is like very large, and you uncover it, and then you uncover like 3 or 4 panels around it, and then it activates. And then when it activates, you do like a crazy combat wave that lasts for like twice as long or something. It's very difficult. So when you do that, you want to make sure you have all your like upgrades maxed out. But when you do that, then you complete a run, and then you like unlock more stuff. And I think there are other ways to play as opposed to like Relic Hunt. There's also like, you can expand the map. So right now I only have 1 map size, but there's also like super small map or super large map, which really changes the way you play. You can upgrade your drill, your movement speed, your carrying capacity for getting stuff back. You can get a teleporter that makes it easier to travel back and forth. It's very deep for like such a simplistic game. The art style is also very simplistic, but it's very relaxing as well. I am addicted to it right now. I've done 2 runs and I have not completed it yet, but it's something I highly recommend if you're looking for just like a podcast game. It's one of the, much like, it gives me real Loop Hero vibes because it's something I can just like put on and play and not really think about, but also be having a great time.
Did you ever play Terraria?
I am not a fan of Terraria, I have to say. I was actually thinking about this earlier this week for some reason, but I don't know why. I don't like that it's 2D, I think. And I think it's, everyone always says it's like the 2D version of Minecraft, but I think I need for something like Minecraft to be 3D for whatever reason. So I never really I own Terraria because I tried to play it for a long time with my pals, but I've never really gotten into it, even though I know they've updated it like 1 million times and there's like a very deep, rich game.
I was going to ask if it was any similar to it, because just looking at this and not really knowing much about Terraria, it vaguely recalls Terraria.
I would say, I mean, in that it is 2D and you're traveling down below, I would say it's similar in that way. But other than that, it's I would say much more similar to like a Loop Hero, because it is a loop and you're constantly building it up, and then you you either complete the run or you die, and then you go back to like the main area and you can like spend stuff on upgrades and whatnot. But it is very much more of a roguelike, or a roguelike, I should say, because I don't know that unless I have more stuff to unlock, it doesn't. There's not much that carries over from the previous game except for the one gadget that you decide to keep. So there isn't like that constant progression, unfortunately. The only progression you're having is unlocking more interesting ways to play, like different planets and gadgets and dome types and things like that. And probably skins. Right now, I only have 2 skins for my little diver guy, but I would assume there are going to be more. But I like it a lot. It's my current obsession, I have to say, although I need to stop playing it and start playing Cyberpunk so I don't lose my game.
So did you say you're playing this on PC?
I am. I think it will eventually come to Switch. You have to think it'll come to Switch eventually, but yeah, I just picked it up on Steam. I guess maybe
it's only out on Steam at this point.
Yeah, it's only out on Steam right now, I believe. Probably would be a great Steam Deck game, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Is there controller support?
I think it should be played with a controller, frankly. I think I'm playing it the wrong way by playing it on a keyboard. I think it really does. I might actually try playing it with a controller after this, because I think it's probably much easier to play with a controller.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into this game and see, because it's not super expensive either. And
no, it's like $16.
I know I've heard good things about it, so maybe I will check this out as well.
Have you been playing or watching anything else?
A little bit. I mean, I already talked about the Outbound Ghost. I did start Ender Lilies as well. This was a game that I think got just recently a physical release through a limited run. And so I had ordered this like a long time, like maybe a year ago. Just showed up, so I started playing it, and it's good. It's a Souls-like Metroidvania with sort of a dark, almost Hollow Knight-esque art style, in terms of how dark and sort of dreary it is, not necessarily in like the cartoony look of it. But it is pretty good so far. You play a character who's like a girl, but you have these like spirit warriors that you're finding along the way, and like they do the attacking for you. So when you like move around and dive and try to avoid people or jump around, that's the girl character you're playing. But when you attack, that's like a spirit sort of almost summoning.
It's like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type of thing.
Sure. And so you have multiple characters that are doing the attacks for you that you're finding along the way. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool art style, and it's a game that I'm enjoying so far. So I've been playing that, and other than that, before Ender Lilies arrived, I was playing just random stuff on Nintendo Online. Like I spent a day earlier this last week where I was just like, I'm kind of in the mood for some old stuff. So I just like turned on my Switch, went into like Nintendo Online stuff, and just like jumped around to random different games and played a little bit here and a little bit there. And it kind of hit that nostalgia fix, and then I was good to go again. So yeah, I think it's cool that you can go onto your Switch and play old games. I was watching, I think it's called High Score, which is this like video game documentary series on Netflix. And like one of the first episodes, they were talking about the original Donkey Kong game, where you play as Jumpman and you're going up, and so the guy that did the sound effects and music for that game and worked at Nintendo for a really long time. He goes by Chip Tanaka, I think, and he still makes music to this day that you can find on like whatever music service you have, but which is pretty good. That was one of the things I discovered from watching that series, but also for whatever reason, it got me in the mood to like try out the original Donkey Kong, because it was a game that I don't think I'd ever really played before. Yeah. And so I played that for a little while, and it's still pretty enjoyable actually. But yeah, that's what led to me like hopping around on Nintendo Online, just trying some stuff out. But yeah, other than
classic games,
still fun, still available. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything new. Oh, I guess I started watching a show called Taskmaster. Have you watched the show?
No, what is that?
So it's a British like comedy sort of game show where they have on like 5 actor, comedian, like funny people, and they challenge them. They have to do these random like sort of absurd challenges. Like Noel Fielding was on one of the seasons. Like it's a pretty long running series at this point, but and one of the other seasons I watched had Jen from the IT Crowd. She was on. But yeah, they challenge them to do like weird things, and there's always like a list of like things that they're not allowed to do to make it even more challenging. Mm-hmm. And it's just like funny to watch them try to like figure out how to do the thing that they're challenged to do. And it's a funny show. The episodes are just on YouTube. If you just look for Taskmaster, you can find little clips from segments or like just full episodes. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's also on Pluto TV. But it's a funny show. I've been watching that lately. And that's it.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Do you have any parting wisdom?
My parting wisdom is to always check the distance of a restaurant on Grubhub, because I was looking around on Grubhub on Friday and I was like, man, I could really go for this specific kind of pizza. Oh man, it's on Grubhub. Must be close. I'll get it. And so I got it. And then I like confirmed the purchase, and then it like showed me the map, and the pizza place was like 45 minutes away. And I was like, man, there's no way this pizza is going to be like hot when it arrives. But it was. The guy had like an insulated bag. But food for thought. If you're ever thinking about like oh, this is a new restaurant on Grubhub, I should like check it out. Google the restaurant and see actually how far away it is, because it's possible that Grubhub just like expanded the radius that it thinks you're capable of getting food from, and that's why there's a new restaurant. So just something to think about.
That's good life advice.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead and follow us on all the things: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at Starside Cafe. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.